What we want to do today is talk a little bit about how to take a limited marketing budget. Before we get any further though, does anybody have an obscenely large marketing budget? No? Okay. So we're going to take how we can take a limited marketing budget and through resourcefulness and theory be effective with it. Right? Now I wanted to ask, do any of you work for an organization where if you actually get to go to a conference you have to travel like this? Oops. Yeah, it's been a long winter, I got to get some bigger luggage. But anyway, I do as well. So our goal today is just to give you a few tips. I know a lot of you are very fluent in marketing, I know many of you. But hopefully you'll pick up one or two tips from listening today to at least recoup your bar bill from lunch. We'll try to save you a little money as we work through things today. I want to be clear, typically it's harder to market a nonprofit than it is a business. And the reason is, for most helping agencies, you have to market to the people that need your services or want your services, and you have to market to the people separately that need to pay for it, right? So you're marketing in you have to do two different targets completely, and it's more difficult. And then we're usually tasked with the further difficulty of having a very small marketing budget or no marketing budget, right? And so what we're going to talk about today is, you know what, there's a lot of effective ways to work around that. Many of you have already using many of them, and so hopefully we'll chat through and you'll see maybe some that you hadn't thought about. Now, what I want to talk about is for those of you that say this, do any of you believe you're not a marketer? Because we're all marketers. We're all born salespeople, right? So when we're babies, we cry and we get our exhausted parents off the couch to calm us, right? We change their behavior. When we sell our spouse, our fiance on marrying us, right? We're marketers, we're marketing ourselves. And I know a few of you had to be really good marketers to pick up the spouses you have, but we're all really good marketers. However, we sometimes don't think we are. Now the first tip to selling is you have to believe in what you're selling. And if you don't, quit, because you're not going to be good at what you're doing. You got to believe in what you're selling. And the second tip is I think most of us are versatilists. We all have several roles, don't we? Right? So what we say is, I don't have time. And you need to start being honest with yourself. What you need to say is, I'm not making it a priority. Because we make time for things that are a priority, right? So lastly, what we need to talk about is, often we talk about what we can't do. Well, we can't do that because we don't have the money. We can't do that. But you need to start talking about what you can do, right? So when you believe in your product, you make it a priority, and you start, good things happen with your marketing. And that's what we're going to do today, is we're going to talk about those good things. Now, the absolute cheapest marketing you can have is good customer service. Now, we're going to talk about in a couple of months, right? We're going to have a customer service session, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on that. But customer service creates a feeling. It creates organizational advocates. Customer service is a mindset, so it's free, right? It's free. Marketing on a budget. What we know is your brand's a story unfolding across all your customer touch points. So if you don't have excellent customer service, your marketing's useless, because when they get to the organization, they're going to be disappointed. Now, a side point, the difference between a great organization and one that's not is their tolerance for team members' mediocrity. So what you need to do is ensure your team members aren't mediocre when it comes to customer service. And that needs to be part of your marketing. Now, what do most marketing plans look like if you have one written down? It's something like this, right? Do most of you have marketing plans written down? Do you kind of have them in your head? You need to change it and get them written down. And you as marketers need to be able to boil down what you're selling to one or two words. In your mind, you need to know what you're selling in one or two words. And then otherwise, as you start to write and give information, it's going to be confusing for the people hearing it, if you can't do that. Second, once you have that, you need your staff, your team, and all your volunteers selling the same message. So everybody's hearing the same message, right? Now, you need to determine your strategy and write down a campaign. Like, look out several months and decide what you want it to look like. That's going to save you time. When you save time, you save money. It's that clear, right? You can work on a different priority. So if you can sit down and get your campaign in writing, it's going to save you time because you're not going to have to rework it every time you want to do a new piece, right? And when it's piecemeal like that, what happens? You have to bring the group back together, your boss back together, the board back together, and have a conversation about it. And that slows everything down, and it makes it inconsistent. And you want to be consistent in all of your marketing messages. And Kim's going to talk a great deal about that in a little bit. Don't worry about your target marketing getting tired of your message. Frequency is a good thing when you're sending a message. You'll get tired of it way before they do. So when it starts to feel old to you, it won't feel old yet to the people you're marketing to. When you're designing your marketing strategy, often we pull a committee together, right? So be careful of who you pull together on the committee. There's an old saying, committees are the cul-de-sac in which ideas are lured and quietly strangled, right? Nothing comes out of them. We find reasons not to do stuff. So you have to be very careful. But if you're lucky enough that you go ahead and create something out of a committee, it often looks like that. Because what happens is everybody wants to bring their relevance of their membership to the committee, and they all have all these different ideas, and it comes together and it looks like that. Now, a camel design isn't very strategic, is it? Or at least it certainly doesn't look like it. So what you want to do is you want to not incorporate everything you can think of into a marketing piece. That's often what happens, isn't it? Oh, we're going to do something, so let's put everything we can think of in it. That usually turns out to be a failure. Okay? If you're marketing to the masses, it's going to turn out to be average. What we know is non-marketers add stuff to marketing pieces, and marketers take it away. As you take it away, you gain interest, you attract attention. So you want to take from it. Quite simply, what you want to do is you want to pick your top 10% that you want to market to and design the piece for that. And what you're going to find is that 10% is probably a bigger number than you thought, and they're going to tell others. And what a beautiful thing when other people talk about your organization, right? So we want to focus in on who we're marketing to and our conversations, and we want to choose wisely who we bring to the table to talk about our marketing, right? So we can find success. Now remember, people change their mind, people buy for only one reason, feelings. That's it. Simply feelings. So you have to create or modify their feelings. Now, sometimes it's simply through education. You'll hear me a lot say, Abe Lincoln once said, I don't like that man very much. I need to get to know him better. It's your job as marketers to educate people on who you serve and how you serve and what opportunities there are, right? So they can have a better feeling about that. Good marketing makes your organization look good. Great marketing makes the customer or donor feel smart. We often make our organization look good. It's about them. You got to make them feel smart. When you get a chance, use testimonials. Put people's pictures in that you are your customers, are your donors. Why? Because it creates credibility for others that know them. It creates trust immediately. If my friend believes in you, I naturally do. Or at least it cuts my fear down dramatically, right? So you want to create credibility. And when someone comes forward and gives you the opportunity to do that, they're creating a huge marketing opportunity you wouldn't have without that. Now, since buying and supporting is based on feelings, do you think it's rational? It's not. But yet we treat it like it's rational. Now here, the top, they've got shoes for $100. Nobody's buying, right? But then they say sale, it was $200, and now it's $100, and everybody's buying, right? Why? Because it made them feel smart. They got a good deal. And what you have to think about is when you're putting together your giving opportunities, your participation opportunities, how do you package to make them feel good about the opportunities they have? Now, I want you to stop. I want you to take out your folder. There's an envelope in there. Now, you would have gotten this in the mail. It was a direct mail piece, and on it, it would have said, break this in half. So go ahead and break that in half. Oh, don't open it. Just break it. Okay, then when you open that envelope, it would have said, this is the pressure it takes to snap a small child's arm. Okay? How'd that make you feel? Create a feeling. Giving went up dramatically for operations. Why? Because they made you feel a certain way. It doesn't cost a lot. There's about $1.25 of pencils and envelopes in the room today. Okay? It was a direct mail piece that it was an advocate, it was a abuse advocate prevention organization that sent that out. So start to think differently. How do I reach people differently? How do I elicit feelings differently? You know, we always act like our clients are rational when they're not. We're not rational. Everything's about the feeling. If we were rational, we wouldn't buy bottled water. It harms the environment and we pay for it, right? Makes no sense, but they do. How many people think if you were at this auto agency, you would have said, let's put a gecko to sell our agency? And on top of it, let's give them a British accent. That's a great idea, right? Your committee would have lured it and strangled it, right? That's what you believe, but they didn't. And this was the fastest growing auto insurance agency while they're using that campaign. People aren't rational, and you need to remember that when you're designing. Also, look outside your industry when you're looking for ideas, so they're fresh and different. And always remember, people love to be entertained. We don't get entertained enough. We don't laugh enough. We don't smile enough, which is part of what the gecko does for Geico. Logos. Put your logo on every single thing you have, everywhere, so that it gives some frequency to it. But what makes a good logo is the brand of your organization, not the opposite, okay? The logo is because people feel good about your organization. That's how they feel about feel good about your organization. That's how they feel about the logo. It's a transfer of how they feel about your organization or your brand. And often people believe the logo drives that. It doesn't. It's just the reverse. And I'm going to ask you, look at each of those. Do you not have a distinct feeling about each of those logos? It's because you have a distinct feeling about each of those organizations, and it's your job to create that feeling about your logo, and that's why you want to have it on. And when I say that, all it is the transfer of how you feel about your organization when you see the logo is how you feel. Now, I'm going to tell you a quick story. My son was 2, and he was in church being naughty, which anybody that knows him would say that was a surprise. And my brother-in-law drew an M on a sheet of paper to try to get him to focus. My son's name's Mark. He said, "What is that?" And Mark at 2 years old said, "McDonald's." Marketing works. Frequency works, right? Now, if you don't have a logo, get one designed. You can have them designed in lots of different places. You can get a logo designed as cheap as $10 on the website Fiverr, which is Fiverr. You can have someone that you know design it for free, but get a logo. We're going to talk in just a second about colors, but let's talk about words first. Words are the most powerful thing you have to work with when you start to try to communicate, right? And what we know is words are powerful, they inspire, they disinterest, and they destroy. So your word choice has to be really, really intentional. Now, there was a Dilbert commercial or a Dilbert cartoon that said he had to sell a product that catches fire that shouldn't. So he wrote that it was the hottest product on the market, right? And that it made you appreciate life. Now that seems silly, but all he did was he took what he had and he tried to find words that were inspiring around it. I don't ever encourage you to ever be deceitful, because you can never back up and build trust again when that happens. But think about the words you choose and think about the word options that you have. Decide on a voice when you're writing. So you may have more than one person writing your marketing. It all needs to seem like it's coming from the same person or voice. It needs to seem seamless. So you need to figure out what that is. So if it's somebody from United Way is writing and someone else decides to write, they need to not see any difference in that, whether it's on social media or in their marketing materials. And whatever you write, then go back and cut it in half. Whether it's a header, whether it's body text, cut it in half. What you find, and Dr. Seuss said, so the writer who breathes more words than he needs is making a chore for the reader who reads. If you put too much text in what you write, you're being lazy, and you're making the person that's reading it work harder. So what you need to do is you need to cut down the read time, increase the clarity, and make it more likely for them to read. And we're going to see in a second what we do when we see too many words. Couple other tips. When you get done writing, okay, read it aloud, and you will find you're going to change it when you read it aloud. And second, always use numbers and bullets to try to break the information up if you do have to have quite a bit of text. But you're still going to cut it in half, right? Okay. Now, what looks better? A or B? Quite simply, we pull away when there's too much words. So think about how you're writing and what you can say and how you can say it less. Let's talk a bit about fonts. Fonts, first off, you only need probably 2. People get carried away with fonts. You need a header font and you probably need a body font. And if you put too many fonts in with too many different colors, what happens is it turns back into the camel, right? It's crazy. So I will also tell you it's a great place to save because fonts, there was a high school kid went and he said if we switched from this font to Garamond, he did a study, it would save his school $20,000 a year in ink. Okay, they did a study on one of the government offices and it would, by changing fonts, it was going to save them over $100 million annually in ink. So I can assure you, if you can choose a font that makes sense, and you can find online which are the cheaper fonts to print. Garamond's the one that they studied. And I can also tell you, once you find ones you like, you can download those off the internet for free. So I use 1,001 free fonts, but you can find a lot of free font sites, and you can download them, and once you download them, you can use them across all your software packages. So pick fonts, use them wisely, and then pick ones that'll save you a little bit of money. Be careful reverse print. You know how you put black and you put the white letters and it pops out at you? You notice it, but you don't read it because it's harder to read when it's reverse print. And then if you happen to print in-house, you're printing all that black ink behind, so you don't want to do that. So let's talk a little bit more about colors. Fast food. Fast food know colors are important and evoke emotions. What they know is yellow elicits comfort, and red makes you hungry and impulsive. And so if you look when you drive down, you'll see most of the fast food have red and yellow. They call it the ketchup and mustard theory, right? Boys like blues and greens. And I actually found out that blue actually reduces your hunger, so I'm going to buy blue plates when I leave here today so I can get in my luggage in case I decide to travel. But find your colors and use it across your organization and logo consistently, because you can look sometimes and see something and know with that color it's probably attached to this organization. So be consistent. Now, when it comes to images, we often use too many images with too much activity going on, right? And quite simply, the easiest thing to do is act like you're writing a children's book. Did anybody read Brown Bear to their kids like a gazillion times? Yeah. So Brown Bear, what did you see? The issue with, the reason they do this with children's book is because it makes it gentler in the child's eye, right? So you can draw through to the image. It'll move you through a page because there's a lot of white space, and you can focus better. And I would say do that with your marketing. I'd also say if you're printing in-house, definitely do that with marketing because white background is cheaper to print, right? If you're going to do several sheets and you're not doing 1,000 and sending them out. So let's take a look. Of those, which one are you drawn to? Which one's simpler to read? The last one that's cleaner, right? Yeah, and they're all saying the same thing, so keep that in mind. Work to create images that are effective. So all they did here is threw treats at the dog to create emotion on his face, right? That's it. They could have taken the dog's picture, but they created a better image for free. Now, always crop out unnecessary background, always crop out unnecessary people. Go tight on the image so you can see the eyes of whatever you're looking at. On this one, I cut around it just to get the white space because before it was dark and it didn't pop off the page as well. There are a few times you need several images, but I find most of the time when you put several images on, or at least in my case, it's because I didn't want to make a decision, right? Make the decision. Find the compelling image and crop it and put it out there. Now, I'm going to assure you, you're better off to use the hell out of one good marketing piece than have 5 or 6 that aren't that great. So spend your time, get a good piece, and then use it. As I said, the frequency is good. What we often do is we create a flyer, we create a brochure, and then we print thousands of them, like we're going to, I don't know, hand them out to every person in the community, right? Because it saved us money. Now, what I would do is I'd test it and I'd print some in-house to begin with, but I'd always probably print the minimum number I need because what happens is we print all these because we save money and then we throw them away later because the shelf life on flyers and brochures isn't very long. So be smart in what you're doing. What it looks like to save money up front, often our intentions don't match what we do in the end. if you want to buy images so you can get compelling ones, you can buy them online. You can get, iStock sells them for 12 to 25 bucks. If you're going to use it as your website and on a lot of different pieces over the next 2 years, it might be worth the 25 bucks. You can go out and type in free images, and you can find free images you can download that gives you copyright options on it, so that you don't have, because otherwise if you pull something off Google, you may not have copyright, the ability to use that, okay? Now I would tell you that when you're searching, if you want it to look like that, type in isolated dog, and if they will show you pictures that are already cut out for you, okay? And I also tell you, for $69, I have Photoshop Elements, and it gives me a whole bunch of different things I can do to make an image more compelling, and it's very simple to use. So you may want to just get that so you can work with some things. Now, TechSoup sells software cheaper to nonprofits, so check there if you're looking for software. This is just a picture of my son and Harry Potter, and it shows I had Photoshop Element. I just put Mark's picture over Ron, right? But it shows you can do a lot of manipulation and do things to make things more compelling if you choose to in Photoshop. Now, there might be trademark issues on this one, so we'll probably move it on pretty quickly. But what I want to say is, there's very little cost often in creating well. So let's look at this. It says, cutting him from the budget now costs us all later. It's a compelling image, right? You could do that in Publisher. You could do that in Photoshop Elements. It's very simple to have something like that done. It doesn't cost a lot. Picks up 5 times more women than a Lamborghini. Scott Dahlke wished he would have had that in college. Anyway, it's lighthearted. It grabs your attention. Could you have done that very cheaply? Take an image of a band full of people if you were, okay. So what I'm trying to say is sometimes, again, we talk about what we can do when we really can, and we need to focus on what we can do. So this last one, it's on malnutrition. Does that send a message? Very simply, right? You just have to be creative. Let's talk a little bit about how we reach people. Warren Buffett says the microphone has gotten smaller in which we talk to people. Okay, it used to be you had this big microphone, you could talk through the newspaper and reach everybody, and the radio station and reach everybody, but you can't do that anymore. We have all these different ways to reach people. We have all these smaller microphones. And honestly, that's not a bad thing for a marketer, because those different microphones are different groups of people, and they're different target markets, and they're broken down more so that you can design your message differently, right? It's a good thing. And many of those ways we reach them are really free. So for a nonprofit, it's a benefit. So each social media has a place for you, and they each have a different market. I would recommend you obviously have a website, and we're going to be talking more about that. Have Facebook, have Instagram, maybe have Twitter, definitely have YouTube. If you're doing any videos, they need to be out there. And then also have a LinkedIn site. But if you're not going to post on Facebook and you're not going to post on Instagram, don't have them, or Twitter. I mean, only if you're going to commit to post on those periodically. You can set up Facebook to automatically post to Twitter and automatically post to Instagram, but sometimes the pictures don't show the same. But if you want to do a quick, I'm going to post it once and have it to go out to 3 sites, you can. The beautiful thing about social media is it's free until you choose for it not to be, right? Now, it's organic, so you're reaching people when they're comfortable for the message. They're sitting in their home, they're looking at their phone, they're looking at their laptop, they've just seen their nephew's baby picture, they have a really good feeling, right? And then they see your image, and there's this transfer of that. There's also, because when someone they know likes, shares, or comments, it gives credibility to them about your organization. And so in front of them is all this constant marketing that you're a good organization to be part of. And so that's why you want to build people to be engaging in with your market. When someone likes your post, and you can go look and see if they're currently following you and very quickly click on it to have them, to invite them through an email to start following you. It's a very simple process. And also I'd say tell your board and team to mass send out saying, hey, like our page, because the more people that like it, the less you have to boost. Facebook tends to bury organization and businesses' posts as soon as they can, unless you pay to advertise. So if you don't have a lot of people, a lot aren't going to necessarily see it. So what you can do is you can boost, and that's just advertise for as little as $1 a day, for as little as 1 day at a time, and what that will do is it will increase the number of people that see it, okay? But again, you want to be strategic on that. You can't boost a share. So if you've got something that you want to boost that's in a share, you have to take that information out, save it, and repost it, and then you can boost. Always include a picture if you can, because it draws the eye. I think we all know that when we've been on it. But keep in mind, if you boost a picture that has a lot of text, it won't let you do that. So what you want to do is put the picture out and the text in the post. That's the way to get around so you can still get some advertising behind it. Include videos from your phone. You can include videos you create. I use software, it's called Corel Video Software. It's $69, and I can crop photos. I've made TV commercials in that $69 software. I've done 20-minute history videos. You can easily, if somebody else posts a video out that you want to shorten because you don't want to watch somebody watch 6 minutes before they get to your part, you can crop it. So what you do is you download it from the internet, and you can get free sites to do, you just can do that from it. It's called Download to MP4, something along those lines. And then you can crop it within your software and post it back up, so you're going to get more viewership. So be intentional. If you're going to create a video, go ahead and make sure that you have bought a microphone, because if you're this far away from the phone or whatever you're shooting from, it's going to sound garbled. You want it to sound clear. Again, $15 or $20, you can do a voiceover very simply. So none of these tools cost a lot to do what you want to achieve. But again, we just have to be intentional in our decisioning. And music, if you're going to put music on, you need to buy it, because otherwise, obviously, there's copyright attached to it. And the same sites like iStock will sell you music for 25 or 30 bucks that you can download. But once you do it, use it for a lot of your different pieces so your music stays consistent as well. Now let's talk a little bit about press releases. I think the two most glorious words in the world for a marketer is free press. I really do. P.T. Barnum used to say, I don't care what they say about me as long as they spell my name right. Okay? So what we know is we can get free notoriety through press releases. How much better is that for a nonprofit? But you want to make sure that first you stop and create a really robust email list that you're going to send your press release out to. That includes regional media. That includes all local media. That includes local agencies. And every time you send a press release, send it to everybody. Okay? Let them decide if it's important to them right now. Tell the story in a way that a writer would write it if they were writing it for the paper. Okay, make it easy for the paper to want to drop it in as content or put it in a newsletter. So what you want to do is you want to intrigue the reader, you want to inform the reader. Okay, often what we do is we send just enough information to get what you're trying to say out there and not to actually tell a great story. And so then it doesn't get picked up. Have your contact information. Always include statistics. Even if you're just having an event, include statistics about the mission you're trying to serve. Right? You're trying to educate every chance you get. Include at least 2 quotes from people that people know. Why? Credibility, right? They see their name, it creates credibility. They may even say, I saw you were in the paper, and then they'll say, yep, I really love this organization. Send compelling photos. Most people don't send photos with press releases, and then guess what? Your photo doesn't get ran with press releases, and sometimes you're less likely to get it ran because they're looking for pictures of people from the community, right, that they want to put in their content. And last, include your logo as an image. Like send them a separate image because they'll often put that in. If you get picked up by a media and they post something out, then repost it in your social media or on your newsletter so people can see your press release that way as well. And make sure you're tagging whoever wrote it or included it to begin with so that they're more likely to say, hey, they're giving us some credit as well. Now, one thing I'll tell you is if you get called because you sent a press release out, they want more information and they want to interview you, always take the interview. Even if they're bringing their TV cameras, always take the interview no matter what. No matter how bad you look, no matter what's going on that day, no matter your schedule, take the interview because you'll be more likely to get called again, okay? And it gives you a chance when they get there to give information and educate on your mission and educate on your organization. If you get to a question you don't know, it's okay to say, hey, give me a minute to reflect on that. Because it's way better to reflect than rattle. And that comes from somebody that's rattled way too often. Marketing can be non-conforming, or can be non-conforming. It just find ways to create attention. At MCSA, we put volunteers. We had them cut out those little people. What we were trying to show was 104 children were sheltered in 2017. We draped them around the building. While we were putting them up, the newspaper was there taking a picture. We were online within the hour. We were in the paper the next day with pictures. They did an interview and story. We got to put our statistics in. Think outside the box. How can you very cheaply send your message differently? I always say you can't be heard when you're standing in the middle of a crowd. How do you stand a little closer to the edge? Let's talk a little bit about taking money. So you do all this marketing and people want to bring you your money and then you don't have a way to take how they want to give it to you. Does that make any sense? Make sure you can take credit cards. Make sure you can handle whatever they bring to you, because when you say no, they may not have anything, they may walk away, right? I laugh sometimes because sometimes I hear people say, well, I don't want to pay the fee on credit cards. Well, okay, if you can't take it, again, you may lose 100% instead of 2% because they may not have cash. Second, I don't know if any of you, if I said, if I give you $1, will you give me 2 cents? Would you not do it all day long, every day? Absolutely. But yet we don't do that sometimes for organizations. And that 2% ensures the money's good. So when you get a check, you don't always know. So make sure you can take the money when they're able to give it to you. 70% of all givers are individuals. And they give 1.72 times per year. So when you say no once, you've probably said no twice this year. Now, the last thing I want to say before I turn it over to Kim is the most important trait for marketers, and I'm going to tell a quick story. So there was a woman, her name was Stella. She was 87. She'd been at the nursing home many years, and a new man came. He was 83. His name was Wendell. Well, Stella pulled a few strings that got placed at his table for dinner that night. And during dinner, Stella just stared at Wendell. And finally, Wendell said, "Ma'am, have I done something to offend you?" And she said, "No, you look like my third husband." And he said, "You've been married 3 times?" And she said, "No, only twice." So optimism is the most important trait for marketing. And with that, I turn it over to Kim Warren. We're going to do a quick transfer.
Okay, good morning, everybody. All right, now that Charla taught you, all her marketing expertise, I'm going to talk to you about different tools that you can use to help with all the marketing tips. A few years ago, when I took the new position as the director of Aligned Impact Muscatine, I found myself with a new laptop that I was really excited about, but I left all my old programs that I was used to. So I no longer had Photoshop, I no longer had Illustrator, I no longer had all those things, but I still had marketing work to do. So I really had to figure out how to do stuff on a whole new sort of budget. So first thing, just to kind of reiterate what Charla said, is everything you do needs to be consistent. So I just kind of threw up here, here's AIM's logo, and you can see that on the cover of our annual report and our website, everything is very consistent. Logo the same, blue's the same, shade of gray the same. Everything I try and have very consistent in everything we do, so that when people see the images, the colors, they immediately know what organization it's from. The annual report, pictures of high school kids. We try and use local photos absolutely as much as possible to show the work that we're doing. So what can you do to make sure your stuff is consistent? If you do not have branding guidelines made, I know some of you are from regional or national organizations or part of a broader system, you probably already have something like this. Hopefully every single person in your office has seen it. If they haven't, make sure everyone has it. So people aren't, typing up something and using a different font, or maybe have the wrong shade of red for your organization, or whatever it is. I created this, even though I'm typically the only one that ever does anything for AIM, but I don't always remember what my blue code is when I go into something else. And then also, if something happens and someone else has to do something, all they have to do is look. It's like, okay, here's, the 2 different fonts. Here's the headline font. Here's the body font. Here's the different colors to use. And if it's black and white grayscale or full color, here's the different ways to use the logo. All really basic. If you're an organization that doesn't already have all this figured out, it's very easy. I mean, I just created this. So you can just make one for yourself and then make sure every person in your organization has it, so everyone can always be consistent in how they're presenting the brand. So how can you design things and do things without needing the big expensive programs? So Canva is my absolute favorite thing, so I'm going to talk about that last. Raise of hands, who's heard of Canva? Okay, good, great. So the absolute cheapest, easiest, if you don't have access anything to do, is if you have a Google account, be it a personal Gmail account, be it many organizations use Google Business, United Way does, the school district does, a lot of organizations do. Google Drive has web-based versions of programs that mimic Office. So Docs is like Word, Sheets is Excel, Slides is PowerPoint. This is done in Slides. But in Slides, you can very easily drag and drop and move text around in a way you can't do it in Word. So that, if you don't have access to anything else, that you can actually design a lot more than you think in a PowerPoint type program. That's what I used to do 15 years ago when I worked in Illinois at a city. We did a lot more in PowerPoint design work than I ever thought we would do. So PowerPoint, Slides. If you do have the ability to have Publisher, that was something I still don't have on my computer is Publisher, but I've never found the need to buy it once I learned how to live without it. But on TechSoup, Publisher is $65, so very affordable. Publisher gives you even more flexibility to add text boxes, add images, move stuff around in a way you can't in kind of a normal word processing sort of software. So my favorite thing is Canva. So canva.com, you can get a free account. However, I discovered if you are a nonprofit, you can get a business account for free. And then you can do all sorts of stuff. But even with the free account, there's free images. So there's a lot of free stock images that you can use. If you have the business account, there's even more. If you have a business account, you can build a team. So like myself, Michelle at United Way, we have multiple people that all use Canva. And so I'm just going to show a couple things. So this is what Canva looks like, and there's a whole bunch of templates, and you can see a whole bunch of stuff I've been working on lately. But if you know absolutely nothing about design, if the thought of having to put text boxes over images or recoloring something for a brand intimidates you, they have a design school. So you can just go and watch really short videos that can teach you how to do whole bunches of stuff and give you examples. They also have templates that you can search. So if you're like, I really like this kind of idea, I want my design to look something like this, then you can just take it, rebrand it, put in your colors, put in your images, and have a good idea. They also have a brand kit section, so you're not guessing, what was my color blue again? What's my shade of red? And you build that right in there. So I built in the United Way color palette, the AIM color palette, and I have our fonts right in there, so no matter who's designing it, your default text box always is the right font. Now you can always change it if you need to for something, or make it larger or smaller or bold or whatever you need to do, but that will be all set up and ready for you. And then the thing that I love about the business account, to help with consistency, as you can easily resize things. So this is something I'm on a committee, and we're trying to boost middle school attendance through the end of the year. So we're doing a contest with giveaways for the fourth quarter. So here's the flyer. But you can do file, resize, it's right here, and I already did it. So it's like, okay, say we want to do a Facebook post about it. Then it changes it to the right proportions. Now, it doesn't look perfect by any means, but all I'm going to have to do is drag some stuff around a little bit and change font sizes a little bit, but I have the exact same image. And so I did that for the flyer for this event. I did magic resize for a Facebook event, because the proportions for a flyer are terrible for a Facebook event. And then I just tweaked it a little bit, and then it was perfect. So it really helps with consistency. So enough about Canva. Maybe I should just be their salesperson. But I just found it to be so easy and so helpful, and not having access to any design software anymore just really made my life a lot easier. So websites. If you do not have a website, I highly suggest that you get one. Anymore, if you do not have a website, people don't find you to be a credible organization. I'm going to talk about 2 cheap options, because that's what Charla and I are familiar with. There are a ton of other things that you can use. So what we use for AIM and United Way is WordPress. So WordPress itself is free. It doesn't cost anything to use WordPress. We pay $135 in hosting and $100 for the domain. So those are annual costs, and they're just paid once. Now WordPress, You pick a template, and then you kind of go through a process of editing it and making the colors what you want and adding in your images. And then if you want other things to happen, like a resource listing or it to feed in your Facebook, you download these plugins and you figure out how to put them in. So you have to have a little bit of a sense of how to build a website, or you have to be willing to just watch YouTube videos. There's so many YouTube videos that can show you what to do on WordPress since it's such an open platform. So I really like WordPress. That's what we use, but I used to, a long time ago, use like Dreamweaver software, so I found WordPress to be a lot simpler. However, I think the easiest thing I've ever seen is Wix. I helped out a little bit on the Ragbri website was done in Wix. I know Charlotte has used Wix a lot. It is much more like you're using design software to build a website. And that is, I looked, it's between $10 and $25 per month depending on what your options are. What I will say about Wix is once you have a Wix site, it's a Wix site. So like WordPress, I can kind of export it all and change to a different hosting service if we wanted to and things like that. Once you're with Wix, it's a Wix site. But from what I've seen, it's incredibly easy. And if websites intimidate you at all, I would probably tell you to look there first before you did WordPress. So now that you've got all this great content, how do you help push it out to people other than social media? So e-newsletters still are pretty effective tools. At United Way, we are fortunate we get access to Constant Contact for free through United Way Worldwide. So if you're part of a larger organization, I would be sure to see if your regional or national organization already has some sort of built-in partnerships with different organizations. But Constant Contact does have nonprofit pricing. So, about $12 a month is what I kind of looked at with the nonprofit pricing it would start at. Constant Contact has templates. You drag and drop stuff. You put in the email addresses you want. You can make different lists to target different people. You can schedule the email to go out at a certain time. They'll even recommend to you, this is a great time. When you sent it at this time before, more people opened it. It'll tell you how many people opened it. Don't be discouraged. If you read, if you're getting more than 30% of people opening your e-newsletter, you're doing a really good job. Because at first I was like, man, the majority of people aren't opening it. But actually, when you look at marketing research, if you have the majority of people opening an e-newsletter, you're doing a phenomenal job. So something that is free is MailChimp. So if you have 2,000 or fewer email addresses and send less than 12,000 emails a month, then you can use MailChimp for free. And I used that a little bit for something else a couple years ago, and it's really intuitive too. So if you're kind of new to the whole e-newsletter thing, I would probably play around with MailChimp for free and see how much you could use it. So just some tips about how to collect email addresses. So I know a lot of people here, you'll have a table at Halloween at the Y, or you'll have a table at the community block party. Those are all good opportunities to collect email addresses with some sort of giveaway. If you host a chamber after hours, that's a great way to collect email addresses. There's always a drawing for that. So think about where you are and how you can incentivize people to give you your email address. They can always opt out, but most of the time they don't. So that's a really good way to help build your email list. So one compelling thing to do is to tell your story with data. Now this looks horrendous. So one of the things we were looking at, this may look familiar to Krista, when before Aligned Impact Muscatine was even called Aligned Impact Muscatine, we were looking at baseline community data. And we were looking at high school graduation rates. We were looking at how many high school seniors enter into post-secondary education, and then how many persisted. And we're looking at all these charts, and you're trying to make sense of it. So what we came up with was having to tell more of a story with people. So this is more of a, what happens out of 10 students, what's happening. And it shows a progression. It tells more of a story. So how many students out of 10 graduate from high school? How many enroll in post-secondary education? How many persist? And then why is this number important? Because the state projects 7 out of 10 jobs by 2025 are going to need some sort of post-secondary education. So that is a lot more easier to read than all those different charts that we got from a whole bunch of different organizations. So it really just helps the story and condense it down. Canva. Yep. Yep, the little people were one of their stock things, and I resized them and recolored them, and yeah, grouped them together and moved them around. I could. I don't know if we should videotape it. We'd have to get Canva's approval. But yeah, if enough people are interested and want help with how to do stuff for free, I'd be happy to do that sometime. Absolutely. So here's another example of telling a story with data that I thought was great. So the ice bucket challenge, I don't think anyone's not heard about the ice bucket challenge. It was such a big deal. But I feel like this image really got at, they're not using a lot of words. They're using an image. Just seeing the ice bucket and ALS, you know the whole backstory, right? They didn't need a lot of extra words at all. And then it's color-coded with images and tells you exactly where all that money went. So then you feel good about whatever role you played in that. So I just thought that was a great example about, that was a whole bunch of charts and analytics and everything, and they got it really condensed down into a really great image that really was a good report back out then to their donors about how they used the money. So the last thing I want to talk about is, we've talked a lot about designing things and websites and newsletters, but the most compelling thing you can do is to tell your story to people in person and have those personal relationships. So if you're not aware, we have a lot of service organizations in the town. Rotary, Kiwanis, Lions. Some of those organizations meet every week, every other week. They look for a presentation at almost every single one of their meetings. So if your organization isn't getting in front of these organizations once every year or two, some of them really try and make sure they get different speakers, I suggest you start trying to reach out to them. If anyone has any questions who the contacts are, I can talk to you afterwards, because I think I know for most of them. Also, hosting or attending chamber events and business after hours, just being able to socialize with different people and tell your story is very important, and making those connections and building trust. And then also, as Charlotte talked about, there's the other side too. There's the reach out to clients. So think about going where clients are. I know public health does a great job of being at the food pantry when the food pantry is opened, to try and capture those clients. Really think about where people already are. And I always, when I think about someone going out in the community and always telling the story, I always think of Frank Iliff, because no matter where I go, it seems like he is there. If it's a chamber event, if it's somewhere else, and he's talking about rebuilding together, and everyone knows about rebuilding together, and if someone needs a ramp, they're going to call Frank, and he is always constantly out there with those personal relationships, having conversations with people, selling that organization.